I got two verses today in this warfare we're talking about in prayer. First one is in 14, and the second one is in chapter 18. So you're going to have to hold your places there. In 2 Chronicles 14, it is the prayer of Asa first. I'm coming through my Bible readings, and it was split in these chapters that I'm talking about. I got it the one day and then the next day, and I stuck with me. That's that one word, prevail. That we're not doing. We're praying, but we're not prevailing. We're not prevailing for the nation. We're not prevailing for souls. We're not prevailing for our future. And I don't want to just be going through the motions. I want to see what you all are talking in the shares here today. Victories, answered prayers, miracles, mercies. I like that. I love, and I could do it. I could stand here and go back and reshare all the stories of answered prayers. I love telling those accounts. I love talking about when I was in Ukraine and they said, do not, whatsoever you do not witness to the soldiers. And I come out of that elementary school and I saw that soldier over there dressed to the tilt with an AK-47, and I just compelled by the Spirit to go witness to him over there. And there stands this 6'3", 200 and some pound soldier weeping like a baby, asking Christ to come into his heart and his life. I got on in that vehicle back to the hotel, and victory. Man, there's a soul clutched out of hell. That was great. That was an answered prayer. That was a divine moment. You have those answered prayers. That's prevailing. But what is it that comes against us that causes us not to prevail? That's what I want to give you today. There's two of these verses. Okay, 2 Chronicles 14. It's the prayer of Asa. Now, again, verse 2 in chapter 14. Asa did that which was good and right in the eyes of the Lord his God. You like to read those. I like to read those. I've read it enough times by now. I know who the good guys are, and I know who the bad guys are. You know the old time saying: if you saw a guy in a western with a white hat, hey, he was a good guy. If you saw him in the black hat, oh, well, that's a scoundrel right there. We don't want nothing to do with that guy. Today, they all got black hats on. Ain't none of them good. You know who's the good guys? Who's the bad guys? You can't tell no more, and that's a part of the problem. So when you would read about the king, and they did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, like David their father. That's the cream of the crop. That's Hezekiah. That's Josiah. Those are the good ones. Okay? There's only a couple of them. They're elite. Then you got guys like Asa. He did that which was right in the sight of God till the end of his days. He finished miserably. He got mad at the prophet. He got mad at God. He died a horrible death because he resented God and turned against God, and God punished him for it. Solomon, all the wisdom in the world, how did he finish? With his heart not right with God because of all them women. They married the Ammonites, Moabites, all them ites that he wasn't supposed to marry. And he turned his heart away from God, and you read that. And his heart was not perfect with the Lord. And that leaves us with that question. I'm a quack cardiologist. Where's your heart at? You got one more day, today and tomorrow in October. You look back over October, 31 days. How was your heart in the realm of the Lord? Did you have a perfect heart towards God? Are you coming to the close of this month being able, I have done that which is right in the sight of the Lord, Dan. Me and the Lord, I am as close to God now as I have ever been. You got that testimony? And you got 2 months left in this year to be able to say the same thing. I'm coming to the end of October. I ain't so good, so close to where I should be. I've seen better days. I've kind of missed a couple of marks, but I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish well. I'm going to finish strong. starts with this. Asa did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. Verse 3, what did he do? He took away the altars of the strange gods. So he removed false worship. The high places, he broke down the images. He cut down the groves. He commanded Judah to seek the Lord God of their fathers and to do the law and the commandments. That's the kind of leader we need. A leader that's going to step out there and to say, from this day forward, as our nation, we have church-state separation. But as for me and my household, we're going to serve the Lord. And I'm going to encourage everybody else there, get into a house of God, hear the gospel, and live the gospel. Of course, you're going to have the atheists and the agnostics and the ACLU. They're going to pitch a fit. But let them pitch a fit. If they don't pitch a fit about that, they'll pitch a fit about something else. But just to have a leader that would step out there and to say the truth. This is the way it's going to be. And also he took away, verse 5, out of all the cities of Judah, the high places, the images, and the kingdom was quiet before him. So all's well. Now, the problem sets up now. Verse 6, and he built fenced cities in Judah, for the land had rest, and he had no war in those years because the Lord had given him rest. Now there again, God can protect you roundabout, no war. He can deliver you from it, or he can send you into it. Okay? Verse 7, therefore he said unto Judah, let us build these cities, make about them walls, towers, gates, bars, while the land is yet before us, because we have sought the Lord our God, we have sought him, and he has given rest upon every side. So they built and prospered. And Asa had an army of men that bare targets and spears. Out of Judah 300,000. Out of Benjamin that bare shields and drew bows 280,000. All these were mighty men of valor. And there came out against them Zerah the Ethiopian with a host of 1,000, 300 chariots, and came unto Marishah. And Asa went out against him, and they set the battle in array in the valley of Zephathah at Marishah. So, again, verse 6 through 9, God gives rest. But God can also take rest away, can't he? That's where we're at in our nation. He can give it, or he can change it. So verse 11, now this is the verse. So here comes the enemy. He's got an army of 580,000. Pretty big army, okay? It's about half of what Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat had a 1,000,000-man army. So you got this army, which is about half that, a little over half. And the time you get, and this is chapter 14, this is halfway through 2 Chronicles. The time you get to the end of 2 Chronicles, you are reduced to 42,000 that were carried away captive. So you go from 580,000 down to 42,000 people. You have removed 540,000 people. Where'd they go? God killed them. God allowed for them to die because they turned away from the Lord in that. Okay, that's just the scenario through this. When this army comes against him, Asa cries out to God. He makes this prayer in verse 11. It's a great prayer, okay? Asa's still doing right in the sight of the Lord. Everything's okay between him and the Lord at this point. So Asa cried unto the Lord his God, and he said, Lord, it is nothing with you to help, whether with many or with them that have no power. Help us, O Lord our God, for we rest on you, and in your name we go against this multitude, O Lord. Thou art our God. Let not man prevail against you. So the prayer and the petition there is, you don't need a big army, Lord. You don't need a lot of people. But we just need you. If the church today of our nation would understand that, we don't need all this drama in the politics. We don't need all their hundreds of millions of dollars that they're pouring into this election. We just need God. But you see, the church still is looking for a man. They're still looking to flesh to help us, to deliver us. I'm not there. I don't care if Ahab or Jezebel gets elected in this thing. I don't need to preach a whole sermon on this. I don't need to spend a whole lot of thought on this. But out of this one verse, we just need you to help us, oh God. If you've got God's help, who else do you need? Nobody. And so the prayer here, do not let men prevail against you, O God. So here we have our first thing that takes us of learning. What is prevailing against the kingdom of God today in this nation? It is men. Humanism. Humanism's in the church. It's in the pulpits, preachers. When they stand and they'll say, look at what we're going to do, I'm going to do this and that, they are not looking to the Lord for an answer. When they'll say, we have to have Trump in the White House because Hillary's this and Hillary's that, they're looking to a man for help. I don't want that. I don't need that. I need God. Any of these circumstances of cancer, of lost souls, and drugs, and all the other issues that we talk about and pray about, I don't need a therapist. I don't need the things of this earth to help me. I don't need a sociologist or a psychologist or any of these other people to come along and tell me what's going to help me or make me better. I need God. And if God was at the center of all this, how much different would it look? How much different would it be? If we knew that every time we come in here to worship God, that it wasn't about men trying to work ourselves up or trying to just make it through. Oh, we went to church. Well, did God meet you? Well, I don't know. We went to church. Every time that we come onto this holy ground was to know God was going to meet us. It would be a whole different atmosphere, wouldn't it? God's in the midst. We're coming into His glory, His manifest presence. I'm going to meet God. God's going to meet me. And I'm going to walk back out them doors. And I'm not going to be the same way that I walked in. And every divine opportunity of church ought to produce that in us. But when you come in here looking to me, or looking to your own self, is to say, I'm just going to try to get through this. And, I don't sing so well. I don't pray so well. I don't worship so well. But I'm just going to try to get through. You're not looking to the Lord. Help us. Help us in the worship service. Help us in our prayer times. Help us in all this, that we become something more than what we was. Do not let men prevail. That's the first account here. We'll come back to that in a moment. But I want to give you the other verse real quick. Chapter 18. Now this is the destruction of Ahab. Jehoshaphat's the king. Jehoshaphat is another one of these, and he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. He's a good king, okay? But for some reason, he got in his mind that he thought it was going to be okay for him to lock arms with Ahab. The boy's about as sharp as a bowling ball. To think that he could join affinity with Ahab and everything was going to be okay. God does not bless sin. God never has blessed sin, and He won't ever bless sin. Okay? So they're together, and they're getting ready to go out and fight this battle, Jehoshaphat and Ahab together. Now they're having this shindig, and Jehoshaphat, because he knows the Lord, he says, call for the prophets to come tell us what the will of the Lord is, if this is a good idea or not. So Ahab, he's got all of his prophets in his side pocket here. He's got them where he can keep them, Grease the wheel and they'll tell you what you want to hear. They call them political advisors today. So they tell them what they want to hear. See, I'm the turpentine portion of medicine. I'm the turpentine of saying, you only break glass in case of emergency. That's the kind of person I am, because I give that turpentine, take your medicine whether you like it or not kind of attitude. And this is the guy called Micaiah. Okay? So all these false prophets come in verse 11, we pick up with this, chapter 18, verse 11. And all the prophets prophesied so, saying, go up to Ramoth Gilead and prosper, for the Lord shall deliver it into the hand of the king. You've got victory. Go to it. You've got victory. Liar, liar, pants on fire. They're called false prophets. Verse 12. And the messenger went to call Micaiah, spake to him, saying, behold, the words of the prophets declare good to the king with one voice. Let your word also, I pray you, be like one of theirs, and speak thou good. Now this Micaiah stands alone. He's all by himself. And Micaiah said, As the Lord lives, what my God says, that will I speak. And when he was come to the king said unto him, Micaiah, shall we go up to Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall I forbear? And it's kind of hard because when you read this, you think, well, he's saying the same thing. He's saying this with a little bit of a dig on this. Oh, go up. You're going to get a victory. He's being sarcastic, okay? He says, go ye up and prosper, and they shall be delivered into your hand. Now, even Ahab knows that he's being sarcastic, okay? And he says, and the king said to him, How many times shall I adjure you that thou say nothing but the truth to me in the name of the Lord? I don't know the last time anybody said that to me. Anybody ever ask you that? Don't sugarcoat it for me, Dan. Tell me the truth. Where do I stand with the Lord? I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. Why? They don't want that, do they? Tell me where I stand before you, Lord. That's a scary thing. But we ought to be asking that. Lord, are you pleased with me? And again, between you and the Lord, you'll get an answer on that. So Micaiah says in verse 16, he finally gives them the truth. Then he said, I saw all of Israel scattered upon the mountains, as sheep that have no shepherd. And the Lord said, These have no master. Let them return therefore every man to his house in peace. And the king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, Did I not tell you that he would not prophesy good unto me, but evil? Again he said, the prophet, Therefore hear the word of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting upon the throne, and all the host of heaven standing on his right hand and on his left hand. And the Lord said, Who shall entice Ahab, king of Israel, that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one spake, saying after this manner, and another saying after that manner. Then there came out a spirit, and stood before the Lord, and said, I will entice him. And the Lord said unto him, Wherewith? And he said, I will go out to be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And the Lord said, Thou shalt entice him, and thou shalt also, here it is, and thou shalt also prevail. Go out and do even so. Now, who is the father of lies? The devil. Satan is, isn't it? And a spirit, all spirits, all angels have to appear before God. We know that by the book of Job, don't they? And the sons of God appeared before him, and also Satan had to appear before him. So you have this angelic host that's standing with God on his right hand and on his left hand, and they are watching the affairs of life. They're watching Jehoshaphat and Ahab. They're watching these false prophets. And the Lord had already prophesied through Elijah saying, all of your household was going to be eliminated in one day. Their blood is going to be spilt on the same ground of Naboth's vineyard. And Jezebel, she's also going to have that same kind of ending on that. So Elijah had already prophesied this. Now God's going to make it come to pass. And so as he speaks this, God looks around about his angels and he says, Who's going to go make Ahab fall at this battle? And one said after this manner, and another said after that manner. And it says, and all of a sudden this spirit comes out and says, I'll take care of that for you. And he says, How? How will you do this? And he says, I'll be a lying spirit. Now the only one that lies is the devil. So who is this spirit? It's the devil. So you have, chapter 14, let not man prevail against you, Lord. Chapter 18, let not Satan prevail. And God gives permission to Satan to prevail for his purpose here. Now that's scary, isn't it? I can't help but see too much more that's happening in this society where it's all about lies and deception. It's all about tomfoolery and trickery. It's all about these things that are out there, which is not the truth, which is not straightforwardness about this. And you have the two things that are prevailing today. You have the father of lies, Satan, whispering in people's ears false gospels, cults, all these different things. You have these movements in the churches today, which we don't need that book. We don't need to follow the Bible. We're just going to do whatever feels good to us. I remember this, they had this conference center up there in Delaware, and this woman was sitting there, and they had all these people coming in, and every one of them, Christian groups and whatnot, Bible studies and choir singing and things like that. They had this one group come in, and the lady that was overseer of this uh, retreat center, she watched it all. And this group come in, they were nice and kind, and they all clapped their hands and had a good time and all that. And she said, it took me a moment. She said, but I just realized something that's different from you all compared to everybody else. Not one of you all opened the Bible and preached or taught or shared a verse. And that guy said, oh, we gave that up years ago. We just do what the Spirit tells us to do now. Right there, red flags ought to go off everywhere. Once you depart from the book, what is there that you're leaning on? Satan is so masterful, so cunning. Did Ahab not have prophets? And they were all prophesying. Go up, you're going to win, you're going to win. And God had one prophet, Micaiah. And here's all these angels. They're going to get Ahab to fall in this, but it was Satan that God used to get him to go fall at this battle. And again, you should know, as Paul Harvey said, then what's the rest of the story? Ahab goes up to the battle. He disguises himself. Oh, well, I'll fool God. I'll fool God. I'll get to that battle and I'll come home. And he even said that. He said, go lock Micaiah up and feed him bread and water till I get home. And Micaiah said, if you come home, then I'm not a prophet. If you come home and my word, then I've told the lie. He said, because you ain't coming home. Now, I don't know about you, but if the true prophet Micaiah told me, hey, just like D.C., if you go down to D.C., you ain't coming home, guess what? I ain't going to D.C. I'm not going to be that dumb. But Ahab disguises himself as if he's going to fool God. And you should know this account. You know how he died? God took a boat, shot an arrow. I shot an arrow into the sky. Where it landed, I know not. However that old poem goes. He shot an arrow. No, didn't take aim at him, just shot it. And guess where it landed? Landed right in the abdomen of Ahab. And that nightfall, Ahab died. Everything that God said. His blood and was washed out from the chariot at Naboth's vineyard. He died that same day, just like Micaiah said. If God says it, it's true. Don't let Satan prevail through false prophets, through lies. It's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay for our future, for our nation. It's going to get bad. But don't let Satan come whispering in our ears. It's okay, it's okay. And again, when people look at me and they'll say, oh, you sound like pessimist and the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Well, guess what, folks? It is. It's all coming down. You know why? Because we let men prevail over God. We let Satan prevail over God. He came into our school systems. He let that little contrary old Jezebel, Madeline Murray O'Hare, take the word of God out of our public schools. We ought never to have let that happen. But a woman did that. A woman prevailed. Satan prevailed. And you say, wow, that was back in the 60s. I didn't have my senses back then. I was just a youngster myself back then. Or for us young ones, we weren't there at all. That was before my time. 1973, same thing. Roe versus Wade. A woman comes along and says, I have every right to make my own choice and do what I want to do. And at this point, 61 million babies have been murdered because of two women. And then one went there and said, I want the right to choose. Now, that one same woman became a Christian and has grieved over that decision all her days. I caused this. But there were the justices that stood there and did the same thing. That they allowed for this. Men prevailed. Satan prevailed over our nation. On our watch, 2013, we did the same thing, where the Supreme Court says homosexuality is okay. 2010, whatever it was, when Proposition 8 was overturned. And I begged for the Southern Baptist Convention and other prayer leaders, hey, this is going to come to the Supreme Court. Let's start fighting this now. Let's war a good warfare. Let's have victory over this. Let's not let their agenda prevail for our future. But guess what happened? They waited till 2 months before the meeting to say, oh, let's pray. Of all my writings, of all my blog posts, you want to know what the number one thing is still hit to this day? Is the Supreme Court prayer guide that I wrote in 6 months before that came to pass. It is still hit by other countries. Other countries get on that and look at it. I don't know why. I don't have any idea, but that is the number one thing. It has well over almost 1,000 hits on it. But you see, we did it too late. We let men prevail. And we're still letting men prevail because they come in and says, what kind of worship do you want? And this one wants, oh, well, we want the bands, and we want the smoke, and we want the clapping our hands and all this kind of stuff. I told Georgie, I said I kind of got tickled down there because as the prayer service went on, different kinds of worship took over. You know what I mean? You don't know what I mean. They had the dancers out and the tambourines out, and I said there was these young girls and they was dancing around with these things, and I said at least they had rhythm. But then these 70 and 80-year-olds grabbed their little veils and they thought they could do the same thing. I told Georgie, all I kept thinking was, oh my God, they're going to throw a hip out. Oh my God, they're going to have a heart attack. And they weren't even in sync, you know. It's like one thing if you got rhythm, but man, if you ain't got rhythm, just let it alone, okay? But that's their style of worship. And I walked out during the middle of that, and the guy was sitting out there, and he said, how many Baptist churches do you see that in? I said, well, you might see it in a couple Baptist-costals, but I said, you ain't going to see it in too many traditional Baptists. But men have prevailed in our worship, where we dance to what we feel is good. Because I've been to concerts, and I've seen television, and I've seen these things, and I don't see any difference between what they was doing and what I see at these secular concerts. Now they'll define themselves, oh, well, we're doing it to the Lord. It looks like the same thing to me. I don't need that. I don't need to be second guessed on this. I don't want Satan to prevail, and I don't want men to prevail. I want God to prevail. And therefore I have to do things God's way. There's a right way to do things, and he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. Do not let men prevail over your church, God, theology, leadership, styles of worship, houses of merchandise, selling things, promoting things, doing things that dishonor God. Don't let men prevail over your house, God. The house of God is supposed to be a house of prayer. But where is it? It's so hard to find, isn't it? And again, as much as we do, don't become self-righteous in that. Don't break your arm patting yourself on the back, as the old saying goes. We're doing it 2 Saturdays a month, we ought to do it 4 Saturdays. We do the first Sunday of the month, we ought to do every Sunday of the month. We ought to have a prayer time in the middle of the week. There ought to be more, so that Satan doesn't prevail over our county. But look at it. Is Satan prevailing over our nation tonight? I'm going to go home, and you know the first thing I'm going to do after I upload the sermons? I'm going to go down through the headlines to see what tragedies have fallen. There was a 6.6 earthquake in Italy. Great calamity, disaster. You've heard me say it how many times? An earthquake hits in Antarctica, hits out in the ocean, 7.0, 7.5, nobody cares. Ain't nobody out there. The fishies, penguins, I haven't heard too many penguins revolt and say, this isn't fair. It just don't happen. But let it hit in Italy. Populated area. Cities on top of a hill. Whole hillsides come down. Whole homes come down. A lot of loss of life, a lot of loss of property, right? It matters. Every year we have an 8.0 earthquake. We have not had one this year. We've got 2 months left. Guess what's coming at 8.0? We haven't had a 7.0, or that was a 6.6. We've had a lot of sixes. Indonesia, places like that. But we haven't had a 7.0 since September the 1st. You at least have 1 or 2 7.0 earthquakes every month. This is the end of October. We haven't had any since September the 1st. Guess what's coming in November? Or in the next 48 hours? It's coming. It's not because I'm some prophet. That's the course of events that's coming. It happens. Just like hurricanes. Just like tornadoes. They happen every year. It just matters where God directs it or where God keeps it from. So when they start to tease me, oh, this is going to be the most historic winter snowfall season that there has ever been, I get all giddy. Historic snowfall, my lifetime, hoorah! But they cause devastation. They cause death. They cause tragedy. They cause calamities. And in the midst of that, do people turn to God saying, have mercy on us? We can get through this. We can overcome this. We can survive this. I'm going to try to do better. I'm going to live a better life. I'm going to turn over a new leaf. I'll wait till the first of the year and I'll have my New Year's resolutions. I'll try. I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ who lives in me. It is the difference between Christianity and humanism. Satan has entered into the church in our mindset. I still struggle with this. Lord, I'm going to take care of this. Lord, I'm going to deal with this. And God says, when are you going to die to self and let me do it? My daughters have chosen some of the worst ites to hook up with that I could possibly imagine. As an assault on me, attack on me. I'll fix this. I'll do a John Wayne on them. I'll take care of this. All I do is make it worse. And Satan gets the victory because he says, aha, you're angry. Aha, you're in sin. And I have to make the same prayer of Asa. Do not let men prevail, Lord. Don't let me prevail. I'm flesh and blood too. Don't let me prevail. But above all, Lord, don't let Satan prevail. Get that done. Well, he was landed over there. Don't let Satan prevail. See, all of you on a time. Victory. But again, we come back to this in our prayers. We flood in to make our requests. Oh, I said my prayers. I don't care if you say your prayers or not. Muslims are praying today, aren't they? 5 times a day they pray. Catholics, they go through the rosary bead. I always like watching them when they do that. You know, it's like A, B, C, D, E, F. They just go through the motions. You know how many churches do that? Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. They just say the prayer. Do they really want God's will to be done? They could care less. Don't let men prevail, God. Don't let Satan prevail. And here you and I are a remnant. Lord, help us. Even though we be few in number compared to this army that stands against us and all the evil that's out there, help us, O God. Help us to prevail. I wish that every day and every Sunday we would come in here and I would say, where's your victory at today? And you would be able to say, who was praying for that soul, and guess who's here today to receive Christ? I prayed for this need that was there, and guess what happened? God answered that, God honored that. I wish every week we would come in. I remember the story, and I've shared it with you before, but John Maxwell is a positive preacher, speaker now, but he used to pastor out in San Diego, California. And they would go out and they would talk to people and win people to Christ. They had this cross that was in their baptistry in the back behind the pulpit, and it would be lighted up like behind it. It would be a glow all around about it. So anytime somebody would lead someone to Christ that week, they'd come in and they'd turn that light on, so that every time when people come in, that cross was always lit up. So what just happened is that every week somebody was being saved. So they come in one week and the cross wasn't on. And they were all upset. They were all, oh my God, this is the first week in I don't know how long since someone hasn't come to Christ. And finally, somebody come down the side, and when they threw that light on, they all cheered and clapped and rejoiced because they prevailed. Victory. We go week in and week out without seeing victory, without prevailing, without storming into the gates of hell and saying, this is my brother, this is my son, this is my daughter, this is my mother, my father. Lord, I'm coming there to claim victory. One of the prayers that they did down there at the prayer assembly was that, again, the families. And they said, if you know, see it in your mind, if you have a prodigal, when they said that, I said, oh my God, I said, this place is going to erupt. Because this is one of the biggest things that's in the church right now. They said 80% of all children raised in church, once they become seniors and graduate, 80% leave the church after graduation and never return. And I thought about when you all talk and pray about the 11 that was in your Sunday school class. 1 out of 11. 80%. Having heard the gospel, known the gospel, understood the gospel, and they walk out and reject. You know why? Because men prevail over their minds and their hearts. Satan prevails over their minds. You want to talk about where the warfare is at? That's where it's at. Don't let Satan prevail over my son, my daughter, my loved one. Don't let men prevail. Victory, God. Victory. Give me the soul of my loved one. That's the cry. That's the prayer that goes up there, is to say, I have to prevail. I will not live the rest of my days in defeat or having my children stolen from me by Satan. I will win this battle no matter what the cost. And God says, are you serious about that? Yes, Lord. Asa, here comes a 1,000,000-man army in him. He's got about half that. Lord, power is in you. Don't let those men prevail over you. That's where the church is at. There's a huge tidal wave of the world. The murder-suicides, the drug overdoses, the political corruption, the money and all the issues that goes with that, and contentment and ease and all that. And it's a tidal wave. And it's just coming over the church, flooding us. Satan's winning. Men's winning. And of all people that should be concerned about that, the church will rise up and say, I'm sick to death of being on the losing side. See, I'm not driven that way. If I'm out on a basketball court or playing football with the boys or something, and I'm on the losing team and we lose every time, I can't stand that. I'm not going to settle for this. Some people just, oh, well, it's just a game. And no, this is life and death, man. I got to win. Find a way to overcome. In the church, I would think, we've lost our freedoms. We've lost our children. We've lost our future. We've lost great pulpiteers and preachers. We don't have any prophets. I'm sick of losing. I'm sick of Satan prevailing over the minds of your family, my family. I'm sick of men. I don't care what you say. I want to do what I want to do. I'm sick of men prevailing. I want to see God's victory. And I know that there is no other way for that to happen than for me to get before Him and stay. and prevail in prayer. There is power in prayer, isn't there? Did we just sing that? Teach me to pray, Lord. There is power in prayer to prevail with God. So teach me to pray like that, Lord. That's the reason that the disciples asked Jesus, Lord, teach us to pray. They didn't ask him, teach us to do miracles. Teach us to preach. Teach us to walk on water. How do you do that, Lord? Teach me how to do that. They didn't ask none of that. What did they ask to be taught? Teach me how to pray. And it is that same question when you go into your prayer chamber every day. You go into that prayer closet. Clear yourself out of place. I listened to some of those guys down there at the prayer summit. You know what they said? One guy got up, and I really respect him. I saw him in Atlanta back in January. Paul Cedar. And he got up and he said, I was on my face in my carpet in my hotel room this morning when I was speaking to God, and God spoke to me. You know, when somebody says that, I don't expect to go to work to hear that from them. I can't expect from my foremans or my co-workers to say, hey, I was on my face this morning crying out to God. I would be glad. I would be ecstatic if I heard that. But I don't expect that. You know why? Because they don't pray. They're lost men. I'd like to come into the church to hear that. I was on my face. Matter of fact, I even got a little convicted about that. Like I kneel at my cedar chest. I got Georgie's cedar chest. That's my altar. But I got so cluttered up in that I couldn't lay prostrate if I wanted to because I've got books and so I've got to clear this out, Lord. If you want me to go down on my face and get prostrate before you, then that's what I need to do. But I got to be obedient because I want to prevail. I want to win for your name's sake, not just for the sake of winning. Please don't misunderstand me on that. Not so I can. That's not what. Because I don't want Satan to prevail over the souls of these people. I don't want men to prevail because they all have the same fate. Hell, forever and ever. I can't stand the concept of that. I can't stand the thought of that. So I have to get in before the Lord. You have to get in before the Lord and say, here I am, Lord. Use me. Here I am, Lord. Take me. Teach me how to pray so as to prevail. Only a few individuals in all of lifetime have done that. I think about Charles Finney, great evangelist, great preacher, went around. You've heard me tell his great exploits that he did. But he had two intercessors that would go into the town wherever he was going. They would go in a week before him, rent a little room, a little cubby hole like back there, get in there and stay and fast and pray and weep so that when Finney finally got into town, Holy Spirit had already saturated it. You know why? Because they prevailed. They literally stole the city, the souls of men, women, and children out of the hands of Satan, out of the hands of their own selves, and said, we got the victory here. Prevail. That's what we need today is prevail in prayer. That does not come by simply saying a little tidbit prayer. It comes by spending time before the Lord to do the things of the Lord for the glory of the Lord. May you and I be such. So 2 Chronicles 14. Asa, do not let men prevail over you, Lord. That's our same prayer. 2 Chronicles 18. I will entice him to go to his fall. How are you going to do that? I'll be a lying spirit in the mouth of the prophets. Satan. Go and you will prevail. Satan prevailed. And Ahab was brought to his fall. Now that was for the purpose of the Lord, but needless to say, you and I come to that, Lord, your kingdom come, your will be done, prevail in my prayers, Lord. And may you be obligated and responsible to do the same thing for all these things.